What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Inside Inter Miami, the Miami Herald's sports show about Inter Miami and all things Luis Suarez, Lionel Messi, you name it. I'm your host, Andre Fernandez, Deputy Sports Editor, joined as always by Michelle Kaufman, our Inter Miami beat writer. Michelle, I think everyone's knees are feeling good, even Luis Suarez's. I mean, not so much for all that talk about aching knees. This man is on a roll. Pistolero, a lot to
Pistolero.
talk
Yeah, I
about
think
with
yeah,
him
I
this
think this
week.
should be
So,
the Pistolero edition. This is the
yeah.
Pistolero episode of Inside Inter
we,
Miami because that guy is just everything a lot of what we're gonna talk about today is gonna be about him, about
yeah.
what he's doing and about everything about his, announcing his retirement, his incredible play the last couple games for Inter Miami, what's ahead for him, and
Yeah.
everything else, of course, a Messi update as usual, the injury update and the news, the big news, the big reveal that the team made such a big deal about that I'll explain that later. It
Yeah,
wasn't really
the
a deal,
the the
but
big reveal and Miami and the Freedom Park rollout that we're welcome home campaign or coming home campaign, I should say. And obviously, like I said, Messi update. We have to find out if he's going to play. The next game is for a little bit, still 10 days as of this recording, September 14th against Philadelphia. But let's start with Suarez. I mean, this is impressive to see what he's been doing, amidst the backdrop of his announcement that he will no longer play for Uruguay. But he's looking good in MLS. 2 goals again, leads Inter Miami to the win. Another big win. They separate themselves a little bit more in the Supporter Shield race. And this was already after 2 goals in the first 6 minutes to pay back Cincinnati the other day. 16 goals in 20 games. And second place in the Golden Boot race. This is impressive for a guy who's 37. And when you look at,
yes.
I mean, I don't know if to look at it from his point of view and say it's impressive, or some haters might say, what does this say about MLS that a guy who was on the bench for Uruguay and is retiring from international play is tearing up the league the way he's tearing up? What do you think, Michelle?
I think it's probably a combination of both. I mean, I would say that the level of play at Copa America, was obviously better than a lot of MLS games are. But I also think that he has just really, really found a rhythm here. And not just him, but all the other players that are playing with him. The team is playing very well and facilitating him to be able to be in those positions. But he is just such a clinical finisher. He is such a clinical finisher. I mean, you see what he does. A lot of guys get in those positions of being in front of the goal, being on the side of the goal, being right in front of the goal at close range, and they take a shot, and it looks like it would be easier than it is. But it's not, because we see time and again professional soccer players who are very good or very talented. They shoot over, they shoot to the right, they shoot wide left, they shoot wide right, they shoot over the top. It clanks off the crossbar, clanks off one of the posts. This guy has a way of finishing. He is so decisive, and he's just a really good finisher. He's exactly what they wanted him for. This is what Higuain was brought in for originally. He did turn out to have a great, ending of his time at Inter Miami. And Luis Suarez was brought in to be the new Higuain. And he, obviously is surpassing that. I mean, he's, already getting numbers that Higuain didn't have. And he's one of the top scorers in the league right now. At age 37, he could very well win the Golden Boot Award. And he's just having an incredible season. The Pistolero, there's still some weapons left in his arsenal. He's still got some bullets left in his little guns. He's really good. He's having a great year. And I asked Tata about it, and he said, I don't want to just talk about his goals. He said, I want to talk about what he does away from the goals, which is the movement of the ball that he is helping with, all of the passing the team is making, having a lot of fluid movement with the ball, passing the ball well. And he's involved in a lot of those sequences with Gomez, in a lot of those sequences that he has with one of the goals, which was Busquets to Alba to Suarez. So he's in the right place, but he's also making good passes. He's playing great. right now for Inter Miami with 7 games left. And, you know, and then he comes out and has this very, very emotional, extremely emotional press conference,
Mm.
announcing announcing his retirement. And he was choked up. He could barely get the words out in the part where he said, "This will be my last game Friday for my country." And
Yeah.
before he said those words, "Para mi país,"
Yeah.
he really lost it. He choked up
That
there, and
makes sense.
he looks like a tough guy out there, and is the fighter and this and that, but he was very, very sentimental at this press conference.
It makes sense. I mean, these guys really do feel it out there. The love of country. We've seen it, in the U.S. in many sports. And when the reality hits, no matter how much you prepare for it, no matter how much you practice the speech and all that, reality hits. And in that moment, you could tell. He looks like he's also one of those guys that his emotions, he doesn't hold them back. You know what I mean? Good or bad,
No,
he puts it out there.
exactly.
So it's
Yes.
not surprising.
We know what he's thinking. There's no secrets to how he's feeling on the field and off the field, like in this press conference. And he's been on the national team for 17 years. He
Yeah.
joined the national team when he was 19, played his first game at 20. He's the leading goal scorer of all time for Uruguay, which is saying a lot because that country has a very rich tradition in sport. And he is the all-time scorer, 17 years on the national team. World Cups and Copa Americas. And, he's just been the face of the Uruguayan team for so long. And for him to have to admit that it's time to go, that was hard for him. And he said some things that I thought were pretty poignant. One was that he was hoping that he said his biggest fear, he said, "My biggest fear was that people were going to remember me and that my children's lasting memory of me was going to be the image of me at the 2014 World Cup, where he bit an opponent, an Italian defender, bit him and was thrown out and was suspended for 9 games." And he spoke about that in this press conference the other day and said he had great regrets. And his biggest fear is that that was going to be the lasting image of his career, and that was something that he was so worried about, and that he hopes that he has put it past. He's put it in the past, and he's hoping that the fans will too. That instead, everybody will remember him for all of the things that he did for this country, for his country, for all of the dedication, for all of the goals, for all of the wins that the Uruguayan team had that he was involved in. So he talked about that. And then he talked about the reason that he felt it was time to step away is that he wants to step away on his own terms, which is something that is really important in sports and in life, really. But he didn't want injuries to be what kicked him out. And he didn't want it to be that all of a sudden he's not getting called up by the coach. And then it's kind of embarrassing and humiliating for a guy
Mm.
like that and even to be honest, this Copa, he was on the team, but he barely played.
Right.
Let's face it. We're talking about one of the leading scorers in MLS. He barely saw the field in the
Right.
Copa America. So he was saying that he doesn't want the end of his career to be dictated by an injury or by the fact that he's just not worthy of a spot on the national team, according to the coach, and that he's just either humiliated by being on the end of the bench all the time or even worse, not being called up. So he wanted to do this on his own terms, have one final game, which he's going to have this Friday against Paraguay at home, a World Cup qualifier. He said he's going to give his life for that game. So we hope he doesn't get injured in this game because now it's a really critical time in the Inter
No.
Miami season. Messi's already injured. He's going to go give his life now with his 37-year-old knees to his country. So it should be a very emotional game for him. I'm sure he'll be sobbing at the end of that game. But as far as his future with Inter Miami, he didn't say exactly. His contract ends in December. He just signed a 1-year deal.
Mm.
So his contract ends at the end of this season, but he did say, "I want to enjoy football a little more. I want to enjoy football a bit more." That to me is a
Hint,
hint that
hint.
maybe he would sign, hint, hint,
Yeah.
maybe one more year. Messi
Right.
has one more year. Maybe Suarez will be able to sign for one more year.
Think about we want him. You know, he's going to pour his heart and soul out in that game. We don't want him to leave his soul out on the field, though. We need it back here wearing
Right.
pink and black in the weeks to come. But the pinch me moment again. Think about the two nations we've talked about, Argentina and Uruguay, and their two most iconic figures in the sport. I mean, Argentina, you can always make the argument. People say Maradona or Messi. They're on this team. I mean, that again goes to that pinch me moment of how amazing this to have, even though they're in their late 30s, but to have these two on the same team is pretty remarkable right now, just for this
They
team.
are the two, yeah, they're the two best players of their national teams currently. They're among the best, players in the world at this point, in their careers. When you look at all of their stats over all of the years, what they've accomplished, they're both incredibly, their resumes are ridiculous, and they're both on this team, not just one. To be honest, I mean, if Messi had never come here and Inter Miami were to have signed Luis Suarez, everybody would saying, "Oh my goodness, how did they get Luis Suarez? That's incredible!" And
Right.
he would be, second in the Golden Boot race and all this stuff. He's ahead of Messi right now in the stats. I mean, Messi has 12 goals and he's already got 16 in league, so he's ahead of Messi by 4 goals. He has been really a team leader in Messi's absence. Messi has been missing much of this season, and Luis Suarez has picked up, the leadership role too, and scoring the goals in the absence of his best friend.
Right.
So he's just had a
very
pistolero, very big pistolero
very
kind
big
of
pistolero season. Yeah.
very big pistolero season, and I think fans would definitely love to see him one more year. I mean, he signed a 1-year deal. I think he would definitely take, I'm not saying he would take any pay, but I don't think he wants to play somewhere else. I think he wants to be here. This is where his family now is. He's now got Messi here, plus his other two buddies from Barcelona. I think he would like to end his career here in Miami, and maybe even play one game at the new stadium. No, I don't know. That's really pushing it. That's 2026.
But look how critical. I mean, not just that. I mean, they get along so well. Two superstars like that get along well, and also how critical his play has been to keep this team where it's at right now. Because with Messi's missed more than half of the season, as we've talked about plenty of times on this show. And without Suarez,
19 games. Messi has missed 19 games.
Without Suarez, maybe this is still a playoff team, but it's not the lead team in the league right now with the Supporters Shield. 7 points ahead now of the Galaxy, even on the Western Conference side, because the Galaxy lost this weekend to St. Louis. So now it's a 7-point cushion. You're talking more than 2 wins, 3 wins required pretty much to even think about catching. They have to win 3 and then hope Inter Miami falters and loses a couple just to catch them. I mean, this has been critical. This has not just been fun to watch for him, for if you were a fan of his from before or even now, but critical for this entire franchise.
Yeah, I think he's been, one of the biggest. There were a lot of skeptics when they first signed him. It's like, okay, we know the guy can score, but they were saying that with Grêmio in Brazil, that he was having horrible knee issues, that he was having pain injections before every game, and how's he going to survive the MLS season? They had that long, crazy 5-country preseason tour throughout the Middle East and Asia. And then after that, to come and play CONCACAF Champions Cup, and then play, MLS season, and then play Copa America, and then Leagues Cup. I mean, it's, the idea was there's no way that this 37-year-old guy on bad knees is going to be able to survive all of these games. And the thought was that they were going to have to rotate him and only play him limited minutes here and there. He's really been much more durable than anybody thought. I think the biggest surprise this season is not that he can score. We know he can score. It's his durability that he has survived. And, I want to jinx him, so I'll knock on wood here on my desk. But the idea that we're in September and he's still out there scoring back-to-back braces, back-to-back 2 goals each game, over the last 2 games to lead this team to victory 2 games in a row here.
Yeah.
It's pretty remarkable. Pretty remarkable, I got to say.
And now, in theory, they're very close to getting Messi back. So now you don't want anything to happen to Suarez. You want to finally have them both on the field for the stretch run. I mean, that's the dream scenario. But let's talk about that because there was some positive developments on that front last week. Even though we're heading into the FIFA break, Messi was on the field finally. He was doing things. Can he play against Philadelphia when they resume the MLS season on September 14th?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, this he returned to the field first with just with a trainer, and then he returned to full training with his teammates. He returned to full training with his teammates, which was a huge, huge step. And actually, we don't get to watch very much the media. We only get to see the first 15 minutes. Tata has sort of indicated that he has practiced with the teammates more than we thought he had. I think he has practiced a few more days than we even realized with his teammates. And there was even some question on Friday before the Chicago trip as to whether Messi would make the trip. Tata did not rule him out during the press conference on Friday. He said, we're going to see how he's feeling after. Now, I've been saying all along, and I was correct, I will say. I was saying all along that I didn't think he would play that Chicago game. Even if he had been training, I thought it was too soon for him to come back, and that the Philadelphia game, September 14th, makes more sense because he's got 2 more full weeks to get to get ready, to get recuperated. So he did train that Friday in front of the media. He did seem to grab his ankle a little bit at the end of one of the drills, and he did not make the trip. As it ends up, he did not make the trip. He stayed back. But Tata said after the game, I asked him, which is always the first question almost that I ask every single time, what is Messi's status? Y Leo, I always say, vamos a empezar con Leo. And then he says, a ver. Okay, let's see. I asked him again about Leo for September 14th, and he said that is the goal, that the goal to keep him home from Chicago was to give him the extra 15 days to get ready for the Philadelphia game. So that is what they're aiming for. That is certainly the target date, is the September 14th game against Philadelphia at home. That would be a huge, massive game for them with Messi at home.
Yeah, to get him back, and especially like you said, at home, where they've been cooking these last few weeks. I mean, there's tremendous results that they've been able to get there. Mostly because of Luis Suarez, like we said before. But this team, starting to get that momentum too on the other side of the ball too. I mean, they're not giving up those goals in bunches anymore, which is a good sign. So hopefully, having all that firepower back, which has made them the lead scoring team, the highest scoring team in MLS. But now the defensive side, the key that we said will be what can win them the MLS Cup. Let's see if they can continue that part of it too.
Yeah, they've been getting their defense together. I mean, they seem to be having some chemistry now between the guys in the back. David Martinez, I think, was a good pickup. I think, he's played well. Yannick Bright, as we've been saying, bright spot. He's been playing very well, to the point that Tata explained that one of the key reasons that he's moved Busquets back to the back line, which is not his natural position, is so that they can utilize Yannick Bright. And that is quite a compliment for Yannick Bright, because what that coach is saying is we want Yannick Bright on the field, and we want him on the field so much that we're going to move Sergio Busquets to a position that's not his primary position so that we can have both of them on the field. Because I'm not going to say Yannick Bright is Sergio Busquets, but I am going to say that he is the type of player that Tata feels, and that a lot of players feel, has those kinds of instincts, and is a player that in the future could be a type of replacement player for a Sergio Busquets type player, the way he plays defensive midfield. And he's learning to see the field. He's learning from the master himself. And Tata wants him on the field so much that he moved Busquets back so that Yannick Bright can play in the spot that Busquets usually plays. And that's quite a statement for Yannick Bright, to be honest. And also Drake Callender has been having, a great season. I did a profile on him. I think that was after our last episode, but please read my profile on Drake Callender. You will learn so much about this guy. He is so interesting. He writes poetry he meditates. I think we knew that he meditates, but he meditates, he writes poetry, he loves to cook, he's written a children's book. He bought a used car out of college instead of buying a new car. He's a really interesting guy. If you have not read my Drake Calendar profile, I strongly urge you to read it. You will, he's not only a good keeper and he's young, 26 years old, but he's a really interesting person to talk to.
Yeah, tremendous overall. I mean, not just on the field, but very interesting individual. Good story. I will throw my recommend in there if you have the time to read it. The great job Michelle did on that. And let's wrap this episode with our last topic here, and that's they're coming home. Freedom Park.
Coming home.
They're coming home. The campaign unveiled all around town on Wednesday. A whole bunch of events to promote this. But I think the excitement level there, I mean, it's not till 2026. They'll finish this season in Fort Lauderdale. They'll play next season in Fort Lauderdale. But then, same year as the.
Let me just say a big fat boo, because I have to drive an hour and 15 minutes, sometimes an hour and a half to get to that Chase Stadium. Nothing against Chase Stadium, nothing against the Chase Company or the stadium, but for those of us who live in Miami, and particularly the southern part of Miami-Dade County, having a stadium by the airport on Lejeune Road is going to be wonderful for the people who live around here.
And
not as good for the people who live in Broward.
Oh. Right, not as good, no. But World Cup year. That was the last part I was going to get to, was the World Cup year coinciding with this. Michelle, tell us a little bit about just this whole endeavor that they're gonna, and this whole campaign that they're gonna, that kicked off already this week, but it's going to go through the next few months as we get closer and closer to the unveiling a couple of years from now.
Yeah, I mean, Jorge Mas, has said in a few press conferences and in a few interviews about the timetable, but they had never really announced it officially as a club. When they plan to open it, when is the construction going on, what are the phases of the construction. So they did all that Wednesday. They put out this very slick marketing campaign. The way they do, this club always does everything with slick marketing campaigns, down to the detail of, on Tuesday, they put on social media Tuesday night, all it was a cryptic picture of the logo, of the team logo, without the herons, without the birds. There were no birds. It was just the logo without the birds. And so people on social media started asking, what's going on? Where are the birds? Why is there an empty space there? What does this mean? Are they going to put a goat for Messi? What are they doing? Are they changing their logo? This and that. The idea was, and I think it was a bit of a stretch, but the idea was that the herons were flying. They were migrating from Chase Stadium down to Miami. They were migrating south. So they took the birds out of the logo as a symbol that the birds will be migrating south from Broward County to Dade County to the heart of Miami, which is where MLS has always intended this team to be. And I've been around 100 years. I'm a dinosaur. I covered this team I covered the Miami Fusion when they first came to be in 1997, which was the first MLS team for Miami. That team also was supposed to be in the heart of Miami. They were supposed to play at the Orange Bowl. At the Orange Bowl, that was the idea. They wanted a Latin team with Latin stars to appeal to South American and Central American fans and the Caribbean, where this would be the adopted team, the adopted MLS team of rabid fans in South and Central America and the Caribbean. And the idea was have it in Miami, have it be in Spanish, Hispanic, have Hispanic stars. They brought Carlos Valderrama, the Colombian star, El Pibe, for that team. They ended up playing in Fort Lauderdale because of politics at Lockhart Stadium. And the same exact thing happened 20 years later. They were supposed to play in Miami. David Beckham and Jorge Mas were looking all over. They couldn't find a spot in time. They had to go play in Fort Lauderdale for the time being. The intention has always been, and MLS basically had a requirement, that this team was supposed to be in the urban core of Miami. That is where this team is intended to be, and it will be there in 2026. That is the big unveil, the big unroll, the big, campaign was, we're coming home. We're coming home with the birds migrating. We are coming home to Miami, to the 305, where the team was intended to be. And the construction, the goal is for it to finish construction by December of 2025. The MLS season will be over then. Um, the dream, of course, would be that if they finish early, ha ha ha. Anyone who knows anything about construction, especially down here, knows nothing finishes early. But if they were to somehow get it completed by early December and somehow Miami ends up in the MLS Cup next year and they have the MLS Cup with Messi in the new stadium, that would just be like a fairy tale. But more realistic is that the stadium will be done in early 2026, in time for the 2026 season. And the stadium is 26,700 seats. It's still not a very big stadium, considering the kind of crowds that they probably could get. But I think they're looking at the future. They want to have a good home that's always full. They don't want it to look half empty. And so 26,700 is where it's at right now. And then in addition to the stadium, there's a 58-acre park. There's going to be hotel accommodations. There's going to be a concert and entertainment area, restaurants, stores, office building. So all kinds of things surrounding the Miami Freedom Park.
Yeah, I mean, you finally look at that. I mean, you put it into perspective when I think of back in the day at Lockhart Stadium when the Fusion were around, and when it was just just a dream, and nothing even remotely to the level of celebrity and hype that they have put together here. But yeah, it's going to be interesting because think about it this way, in the landscape of South Florida too, like the Miami Hurricanes. You mentioned the Orange Bowl. But the Miami Hurricanes always dreamed about having something like on campus, some kind of stadium, either
Right.
on or near, and have never been able to for different reasons, obviously. But now you're going to have something right in the heart of Miami like that. And it's the first time since the Orange Bowl. And I mean, you've had Lone Depot Park, of course, with the
Marlins Park.
Marlins.
Yep.
But it hasn't generated, other than maybe when the World Baseball Classic is there, it hasn't generated some sort of fervor where it's a full packed house constantly, that sort of thing. You haven't seen a phenomenon like that since the Orange Bowl. It'll be interesting to see if they can replicate something like that here.
I know they want to, and I will tell you that Jorge Mas, a little backstory here. Jorge Mas wanted to buy the Marlins. He is a baseball guy. He's Cuban. He's a baseball guy. His first foray into team ownership was to buy the Marlins.
Yep.
He did not get picked to buy the Marlins. They picked the Derek Jeter group. They did not pick the Jorge Mas group. Jorge Mas was then approached by MLS and said, "Hey, you want to own a team? You didn't get the baseball team." David Beckham said, how about me? How about my team? How about MLS? And that's how he got involved. But I can tell you, he would love that. Inter Miami Stadium is basically right across the 836 Expressway from the Lone Depot Park. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I can tell you, I know that Jorge Mas is a very competitive guy. I know he is. I don't care. He would love in the middle of the summer to have a packed Inter Miami Freedom Park Stadium, and across 836 in the baseball stadium have some empty seats over there. I don't think he'd ever say it, but he's competitive, and he wants to make this stadium a great success, and they are going to do everything to make this stadium a great success. And I do think, honestly, that the passion for soccer in this community, in Dade and Broward, the passion for soccer in this community is so huge that I do feel that with a big, with a modern stadium, not so big, but 5,000 more seats than they have now, a modern stadium with all the amenities, with all the bells and whistles, with the fancy suites and this and that. I do think that you're going to see celebrities, Latin celebrities are going to show up. All of the celebrities who are driving up to Chase Stadium to see these games, it's going to be much closer for them to be right there at Miami Freedom Park. I think that it could be a great success. I do. Now, the big question is, of course, will the team be good after Messi and his friends retire?
Right.
That is the gazillion dollar question. It's a $500 million question, because they are investing into that stadium. And yes, right now that team is the toast of the town and the toast of MLS, but that's because they have Messi, Suarez, Busquets, and Alba. If you take all four of those out of the equation, what does this team look like? And will the fans still be flocking in their pink number 10 shirts? That
Yeah.
is the question that remains to be seen.
Yeah, I could tell you about the going back to the the Jorge Mas competitiveness. I saw it in person. I used to talk to him when he was on the sidelines at Columbus, watching the kids play for Columbus High School, and I remember how competitive and fiery he was back then. Just chatting, totally just hanging out on the sideline. So I could see that same fire there. And yes, I remember from covering the Marlins too, right around that time when the ownership change happened from Jeffrey Loria, and thinking, yeah, I'm sure he's gonna, it's gonna be like a little wave from the other side of the 836. I mean, he might want to do a sign that I can't put on the show as well, but he won't. And again, he won't say that, but I'm sure it's going to be pretty validating, pretty satisfying for him if this turns out in a good way for this team. And like you said, I mean, that is you can't put a price tag on that question. I don't know if the carryover from this phenomenon that they've built can at least, you're not going to get another Messi, someone that high caliber right away at least, but can they bring in high quality players from around the world that think, okay, it worked for Messi, it worked for Suarez, it worked for Alba, Busquets, all these guys. Maybe it can work for me too. I can go and get that kind of
Yeah, maybe the
visibility.
next wave, right?
Right.
Maybe the
Get that
next
kind of
wave of
visibility. Right.
players
Not just
from
win.
Barcelona, from Real Madrid, from Chelsea, from,
Right.
from England.
Not
Maybe
not
the
just
next wave of players
yeah.
will come over.
And not just win,
Yeah,
but they want to care about their own visibility, their own brand, their own, if you're a star, if you're
right.
a global star, a young global star. So all that
And they
together,
all
let's see
love
how it goes.
Miami. Young global
Yeah.
stars love Miami. Let's face it, young global sports stars, they vacation down here anyway. You see
Yeah.
them all the time. They vacation here. A lot of them have condos here. They love to go to South Beach. So if they have a chance to, to follow Messi and play in a brand new, sparkling new stadium, I think that will be very appealing to some young talent coming up in the next 2 years.
Well, for all of you Inter Miami fans and just people who just love watching this show, we appreciate it as always for watching it. We're going to be, I think we're going to be back next week, if not for sure the week after. I know there's a little break right now, but the next game for the club won't be, as we mentioned before, until September 14th against Philadelphia. But between now and then, we'll keep you posted on any info, any news about the team or about the stadium or anything else regarding Inter Miami. As always, Michelle will be all over it, I'm sure. And you can follow her work at MiamiHerald.com. You could watch this show and any of the ones before it if you want to catch up and binge watch some episodes. They're on MiamiHerald.com, on YouTube. And if you want to, if you can only listen to it, remember Spotify, iTunes, your favorite podcatcher usually should have all of them. So we appreciate you watching. We appreciate you listening. For Michelle
And we
Kaufman.
love your comments. For those of you on YouTube,
That's
thank you
right.
for all the comments too. Keep
Definitely.
on sending those comments, and we love to hear from you. We want to hear what you guys think and what you want to talk about, and just what you think about all these topics we're covering.
So until next time, for Michelle Kaufman, I'm Andre Fernandez. Thanks for watching Inside Inter Miami, and have a great weekend, everybody.